Get our next guest on. It's Stephen Slater. He's senior immigration lawyer at OTS Solicitors in London. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Good evening.
Now, Stephen, Andre has had a thought which he's put out there. I don't know whether it's a genuinely held thought or it's one of those that's designed to wind me up. But he has decided that the 200,000 people that we're roughly estimating that are receiving unemployment benefit, we should force them to work. Now, as a solicitor and someone who's familiar with the law, can you force someone to work in this country?
No, because laws require that anybody in normal civil society can do whatever they like unless something is illegal. So you can't place a positive burden on somebody's shoulders to work. But the problems of the long-term unemployed are not frustrated by immigration; they're assisted by immigration, because migrants are the fuel for economic growth. And if you look at the period when living standards in this country rose by leaps and bounds in the 60s, that's when we had a post-war baby boom. So an increase in the number of households it leads directly to economic growth. And countries like Canada, who encourage immigration, as a result, increase the rate of household formation, and that increases overall wealth. And that helps the whole of the economy. So people out of work need a vibrant, growing economy, and migrants are a vital ingredient in that growth.
But isn't there a moment when you run out of space? I accept that's not going to be true of Canada.
We're not running out of space.
Oh, come on, London. What is the density of population in London? It's absolutely madness. I mean, people are living on top of each other. Of course there's a problem with the number of people.
I'm sorry, that's just demographically illiterate.
Hang on a second. It's demographically illiterate to say the population of London is increasing. Please explain.
Okay. The population of the country has grown from 38 million at the turn of the century to nigh on 65 now, with no ill effects. And
there's no traffic jams and there's no problem. There's no property price increases.
Come on, you can't blame immigration for traffic jams.
Hang on a second.
The fact not every immigrant wants to live in London.
Hang on, let's be clear, right. Siberia has no traffic jams because no one lives there. London has traffic jams because people live there. Bigger population creates problems. Fact.
As Jonathan Portis alluded to earlier on, the problems of wealth. One of the reasons we're the fifth or sixth largest economy in the world is precisely because of the growth that we've sustained over that period. And if as a result of Brexit we reduce EU migration, we will see economic growth stall. The Office of Budget Responsibility has said we need roughly 1 million additional migrants from the EU just to stand still economically, because the domestic labour market is not big enough. It's reached capacity. We have the largest number of people in work that there has been since 1971. So the domestic population isn't growing fast enough to deliver the economic growth that the country needs. That's why we need to top up with immigration.
So we're basically have filled up all the jobs, is what you're saying? Almost.
We are as close as possible in economic terms to full employment, as makes no difference.
And what about the vacancies that we hear every day, the 100,000 jobs at the NHS and things like that?
Yes, the vacancies that we have are in skilled jobs.
Right.
And that's an acute problem. And that's why skilled workers have come in from the EU, and EU migrants are twice as likely to be graduates, twice as likely to be higher skilled than their UK counterparts. And they're not displacing low skilled people from work. They are catering for an acute shortage of skilled people at the top end of the labour market in Great Britain.
And aren't we kind of getting a good deal. This is my hustler gene kicking in, because we are basically benefiting from training people that we haven't had to pay to train. So if a doctor, a high-skilled worker, we haven't spent all those tuition fees, all those, the doctor's fees, whatever it costs to actually make that.
But Alexis, hang on. If what you're doing to a country like India, that is per capita comparatively poor, is stealing all the doctors they pay
there's
well,
your kind
That's
heart.
not very nice.
Oh my God! It's only taken you 2 hours and 45 minutes to say something kind.
Get out of it.
And fair.
Get out of it.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So, Stephen,
can I just say, I think we get a fantastic deal from migration as a country, and not only an economic benefit, but also, to allude back to your previous discussion, a cultural benefit, because the migration that has come to this country from former Commonwealth countries embrace the values and traditions of Britain actually just as effectively as domestic population. If you want to look at the traditions of good quality education, those have been preserved in Africa and India. And if you look at school attainment in inner city schools in Tower Hamlets, that's a result of South Asian migration who have invested in the next generation. They are 100% focused on the attainment and achievement of their children, and they sit in the best tradition of good quality education. And that's why migration doesn't just improve the country economically, it improves all of its well-being.
Okay, so Stephen, what do you think is the solution to this perception? Andre said something which I find uncomfortable, but I think he's right to bring it up. That feeling in certain parts of the country where the perceived, white Christian culture is being, I was going to use a word that I don't want to use, but is now beginning to feel a minority, and people having an issue with that. To my mind, it requires more education and perhaps a little bit more integration. But what do you think we can do to actually continue this change of heart towards immigration?
Well, but it happens organically over time.
Right.
And we have, if you look at the older migrant communities, the Huguenot community, the Jewish community, they have all, and I'm sure their current counterparts will make exactly the same progress. And the fact that we now have a Muslim Home Secretary, these are straws in the wind that show that inevitably proximity makes, over time, for integration, and our society is big enough and rich enough and generous enough in heart to embrace different cultures and not be diminished by them. I don't feel any less proud of my nation that I share it with people from a different culture or a different tradition. Quite the reverse. I stand tall and I stand proud as a British person because we're a multicultural society, because we're a member of the European Union. We could, if we had the self-confidence and self-belief in ourselves, we could be a leading voice in Europe. We don't have to be a victim. We don't have to behave as if somehow the other people diminish us. I'm afraid that's a psychological blockage which people who have a little Englander frame of mind have got.
Okay. Okay, I'm afraid we're all out of time, but it's been fascinating listening to you, Stephen. That's Stephen Slater, a senior immigration lawyer at OTS Solicitors in London.